Okay, so now we're going to take a look at significant figures in multiple calculations. So with our rules set aside, okay, so we know that addition and subtraction, we are always going to go to the lowest decimal place or the highest place, or really typically what we're going to say is the highest decimal. And then we know that multiplying and dividing, we are going to be looking at the number of significant figures. So now that we know those rules, we're going to talk about how to do multiple calculations. So first and foremost, when we solve one of these problems, we always have to follow the order of operations working left to right. So what is the order of operations? And we're going to put this number below, or we're going to do this calculation probably where it is. But so first thing, we're going to use PEMDAS. Okay, so PEMDAS is, we're always going to do parentheses first. Then we're going to do exponents. By the way, we're also going to put roots in there, exponents and roots. Then we are going to do multiply, divide. And then finally, add, subtract. So we're always going to work from left to right, and we're going to do these properly. When we properly do that, we always have to, number two, underline where where we would have rounded. We want to keep track of that because that's going to be relevant in the end. So we're always going to keep track of where we would have underlined. We're going to do them one calculation at a time. Okay, so underline where we would round and one calculation at a time. And then finally, we are going to round at the end. Never round before. You're going to take everything from your calculator and you're going to round at the end. So we're going to follow PEMDAS. We're going to underline where. We're going to keep track, one calculation at a time, and then round at the end. So when I'm looking at this problem, my first decision is, okay, what's the first calculation I need to do? Well, PEMDAS says parentheses first. Do I have parentheses? I do. So I'm going to take care of the bottom. But before I take care of the bottom, I'm going to rewrite everything else. 3.12 times 1.4556, all divided by, now I can plug that new math in. So 1.432 minus zero point 0.1 gives me 1.332. I've done the math. But we're not finished. Because I've done the math, I have to decide where I would have rounded. Remember, adding and subtracting, I'm looking at the highest place or the number of decimal places. This is rounded to the tenth. This is the has a number in the tenths place. That's the last significant figure. This has a number in the thousandths place. That means we can ignore this one. My answer should be rounded to the tenths place. So I'm going to underline the tenths place. That's where I would have rounded. I'm not going to round yet. That's where I would have rounded. Okay, that's it. We set it up. We did the calculation for PEMDAS in order, and then we underlined where we were. So the next step, parentheses, no more parentheses. We're now going to focus on this one. No more parentheses. Okay. There's no exponents or roots. Okay. What's next? Any add PEMDAS, right? Uh, so multiply or divide, working from left to right. Well, we have the multiplication on the top. So we're going to take the 3.1. So I'll take the 3.12 times the 1.45562, multiply those out. And again, I'm going to rewrite everything else. And so now I have the bottom, which is 1.332. I still want to keep that underlined to keep track of where I would have rounded. And on the top, I'm going to take everything from my calculator, 4.54, 15344, 15344, 5344. There we go. So this is everything that I got in my calculator. And now I have to make a decision. Well, I'm multiplying and dividing, so I'm interested in the number of sig figs. This has 3 sig figs. This has 6 sig figs. This one wins. My answer should have 3 sig figs. So I'm going to underline the third sig fig in my calculation. That's where I would have rounded. I'm still holding on to all of those numbers, but that's where I would have rounded. Again, we're going to go to PEMDAS. We're up to multiplication and division, and there's only one operation left. So I'm going to just plug this into the calculator, divide it 4 point, the number that was already in there, divided by 4 point or divided by 1.332. I end up with 3 point, and this goes on forever in my calculator. 409,560, 360. And I think it repeats like that. But I never ever want to write this. This is too many sig figs for a problem, right? If you wrote this in your lab manual, I would roll my eyes and mark it wrong. There's too many sig figs. We have to decide when to cut it off. Okay. So this is the hard part. This is the part that confuses people. So here are my two numbers. And now I'm dividing. So I'm interested in the number of sig figs. The top one, how many sig figs does the top value have? It has 3 sig figs. Okay. It has 3 sig figs because it would have been rounded to 3 sig figs, right? It has a bunch here, but those are not the relevant ones. This is the relevant set. It would have had 3 sig figs. That's why we underline. This one would have had 2 sig figs. So my answer has to have the least number of sig figs. My answer should just have 2 sig figs. I'm going to underline the second sig fig, and I'm finally going to round 3.4. There is my final answer of 3.4. So again, follow the order of operations, keep track of where you would round, and then finally round at the very end. And that's it. That's how you do multiple calculations. So with that in mind, we're going to do this in class. So give this a go, or we're going to give it a go in class, but give it a try.